Hi, this is Kathi Quinn with Floriani. Floriani is a division of R&K Distributing, and I want to welcome you to this week's Project of the Week. I have been teaching for Floriani for 10 years, and I had taught a business seminar at one point in time, and one of the big questions is how to make money with your machine. Well, I wanted to share with you what I did to pay for my very first machine. Now, what had happened is I had bought a little flatbed machine, came home, and like all of you, when you first get an embroidery machine, anything you can drive a needle through, you embroider something on it. Well, I embroidered on my dog's collars. I embroidered their names. I was at the vet with my dogs. A lady asked me, "Oh, what wonderful collars. Where did you get them?" Well, the next words out of my mouth were, "Oh, I did it." Well, then she asked me, "Well, how much do you charge?" I do not know where this came from, but just out of the blue, I said $14.95. She said, "Well, could you make me two in different colors?" And right there, I started making money with my machine. And what I did was, my goal was not to make a business out of embroidering for other people, but my goal was, hey, if I can make money with this, I can pay this machine off. And that's where it all started. And since then, I've done several things that have paid off my machines, but I wanted to show you this simple way to make some money with your machine. Now, people that have grandchildren or animals always spend money. And if they take their animals to the vet, then you know they spend money on their animals. And I'm talking about you can put names on blankets for them, on their beds, but where I made my money is the collars. Now, the first thing I needed to do was figure out how to put a name on a dog collar. So I thought about it, and I used Floriani's Wet and Stick with a grid. It's a medium tearaway that has a 1-inch grid system built on it, and I would actually hoop that. When you dampen it, it gets sticky. And I would stick my collars down. But of course, the first thing is where do I stick the collars down, and how do I know where the name's going? Because you can get more than one in a hoop. Now for today, I'm just going to show you how to do one, and then you can put as many in the hoop as you need. But I'm also going to show you a feature that I did not have, and I'm going to talk to you about the name drop. So the first thing we're going to do is create a placement line for our dog collar. So I'm going to come up to our shapes. I'm going to left mouse click on the rectangle, and I am just going to, I better left mouse click on it, get it. I know I have it because I've got a rectangle stuck to my cursor, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. Now I'm going to transform this. Now this is all going to depend upon the dog collar you have purchased. Now what I used to do them on are those heavy nylon dog collars, and let me tell you, your machines will stitch through them beautifully. So what I needed first is the height of the dog collar, and this is going to be different depending upon which dog collar you buy, the size of the dog's neck. But I'm going to make this for my golden retriever. So it's 1 inch high because that collar is 1 inch wide. And it's going in the place that I have, and what I do is I buckle the collar around the dog's neck, then I mark the center back. So now from there I can see how long I can make this, because the buckle is always going to slide and fall around the bottom of the dog's neck because of the weight of the buckle and of the dog's tag. So what's going to be on the back of her neck is centered exactly opposite of where that buckle is where the center of your design is going to be. Now what I'm going to do is see, depending on how wide the dog's neck is, how big around it is how much room I have for that dog's name. Well, on my dog, I've got 5 inches worth of embroidery space. So it's 1 inch high, the width is 5. So I'm going to apply. So there is the space I have to stitch my dog's name into. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come to the T for text and left mouse click on it. I'll have an A stuck to my cursor. Now we've got this as just artwork. Remember, we drew it with the artwork rectangle. So we're going to deal with that in a moment. So I'm going to left mouse click on screen, and now my lettering's going to come up. Now I'm going to make this about 0.75, about 3/4 of an inch tall. That's a nice size. And I am going to use this broadcast alphabet. But should I want a different one, I'm just going to drop that box down and I could look through all my alphabets. Remember, with Floriani Total Control U, you have over 150 alphabets. And you know, with updates, a lot of times we'll slip in a new one. So always watch for the alphabets. But we're going to stay with the broadcast because I did like that. And I am going to, oops, I said 0.75. I'm going to come up here and type in, and I'm going to type in Lucius. That's my son's dog's name. So I'm going to type in Lucius, and I'm going to apply. Now with that applying, there is Lucius. Now I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to put it inside my box. Now I'm going to come over to my sequence view, left mouse click on that artwork box, and I'm going to change the color of that box by left mouse clicking just on any different color. I just don't want it this same color as my text. So I'm going to come over here and just left mouse click. And now that I've got that in a different color, I'm going to come down to my run stitch. Remember, we've got the one-click wonders. So I'm going to left mouse click on the run. So I do have a single run. Now what I'm going to do is change the stitch length to about a 4. This is just a placement line. So what's going to happen is this is going to stitch directly onto your stabilizer. Now that means you could use the wet and stick with a grid. You could use perfect stick. You could actually use, because the dog collar is very stable, you could use wet and gone tacky. So any one of those 3 stabilizers will work for you. Now remember, perfect stick and our wet and stick with a grid are both tearaways. So they are going to tear away from behind this. Now our wet and gone tacky, now that is not a tearaway. That is a totally water-soluble stabilizer. Now you would trim around the name on that, and then you would soak it in water. It's going to rinse clean and clear in about 60 seconds. It won't be slimy or stinky, but it will come completely away from the back. Or you can use one of the tearaways. That is always personal preference. In this case, you could use any one of the 3. Now, perfect stick, you're going to hoop it with the paper side up. You're going to score the paper and it will have a tacky surface. So wet and stick with a grid, you're going to dampen to activate glue. Perfect stick, you're going to peel the paper away and stick it directly to the stabilizer because it already has a sticky top. Or you're going to use wet and gone tacky, which also has a tacky top and is a total water soluble. So now that we have decided our stitch length, we are going to apply. So now I have a single run at 4 millimeters to stitch out directly onto my stabilizer. That way I know where to place the collar. So then I'm going to stick the collar, the 1-inch collar, down right on top of this placement line. So now I've got my placement. Now I have the name in here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my sequence view and select all items. Then I'm going to come up to my alignment tools and I'm going to go for center, center. Now notice our name is centered in here. Now I've always liked to, we have center, center, but I've always been really comfortable. I like to do the horizontal and then I like to come back and do the vertical. That just is, to me, is just like the double check. Now that's again personal preference. So now I've got a placement line and let's show you what's going to happen. It's going to stitch out our placement line and I'm using my slow redraw to look. Now I'm going to stick down my dog collar. Now I'll come back and it will go ahead and stitch out Lucius. Now a dog collar is extremely stable. It's a flat piece, but I do like my lettering to stitch center out on this. It's just, again, now in this case it's personal preference. Now if you're going to work on a cap, you must stitch center out. If you're going to work on a jacket that's got multiple layers, or a windbreaker that's got some layers, stitching center out keeps you from having any puckering. It's going to push always to the outside. But I just like doing the dog collars this way. I've always thought it looked better. So how would I do center out? Well, I would come right here to my text extra in my properties box. And sew sequence says it's going to start at the left. So I can say start at the left, start at the right, or start at the center. I'm going to say apply. And what's going to happen now is placement line, stick down the old dog collar. Now it's going to stitch center out. Now again, for me that's personal preference. But now, what if I'm going to do several? A lot of times what you'll do is you'll pick up your dog collar orders, and what I did is I talked to my vet's receptionist and I gave her $1 on every dog collar order she took. And I took 3 types of text and 6 dog collars, 6 colors, and I gave them to her to show them samples so they could pick the red dog collar with text B. Because if you tell them you have over 150 fonts, you'll never get them to select the one they want. So you pick fonts that you know will look good on those dog collars. Nice big block print looks good. Little tiny skinny script doesn't look too good. Now you can use script, but not the real fine script, because it'll kind of get lost in the dog collar. Now I've got Lucius here, but I'm going to do more than one. So what's going to happen is I'm going to come up to my name drop here. And with name drop, this is such a nice feature. You notice it shows my design here, because my basting line is the design, it's not the lettering. What this is saying, where do you want your lettering? Well, I've already told it I want that lettering Lucius to be inside this basting line. So because of that, when I go to name drop, it's got the basting line and it's going to add the names I want in here. So I'm going to say plus, plus, plus. Now notice they're all identical. Now I'm going to come back here and say, in this Lucius, this one I don't want to be Lucius. In this one, I want this one to be Titus. So I'm going to leave Titus there. I'm going to come back down to this one. And in this one, I'm going to put Maddie. And I'm going to save. Now, I could have them all the same font, or perhaps Maddie I'm not going to do in broadcast font, so I can select that, and notice I have the little drop down arrow, and look, it even shows me the preview. So I could come back in here and say, well, for her I'm going to come and do, let's see, what would we like for Maddie? Well, let's look at Child's Play. Now I could change the height if I wanted to change the height of the text, because sometimes if you have a letter that's going to hang down, like I have a dog named Noga. So if I put Noga in here, let's go ahead and give us another one, and let's do Noga here. That G is going to hang down, and I'll show you what's going to happen. So we are going to now make a decision. Now we're going to say to open all files. Now I can say don't open the files. Just open the first file, and I can save them with whatever name I want. And it's saying, what's the base file? And I'm going to put 1-inch dog collars. I'm going to name that as my file base name. And I'm going to say, okay, open all the files and save. Because I'm actually going to work on these and stitch them all out. So now it's creating those for me. Now I'm going to close this, and I want you to notice something. Here are 1-inch dog collars, and there's all of them. Here's Lucius, Titus, Maddie, and Noga. And see what I'm telling you about Noga? See how that G hangs down? So I've got two choices with Noga. I could have with her made it all capital letters, and I wouldn't have had this issue, or I would have made it a smaller font. So that would have been my choices. So you can see how easy this is. Now I did this doing dog collars. Now I easily got $14.95 a piece. I went online. I was buying them at Target, and I was paying about $7.50 for those good collars. So I went online. I found where you could buy dog collars in lots, which made them a lot less expensive, sometimes less than $2 a piece, and would buy whatever the end of a lot was. So I might have to buy 38 1-inch dog collars, and they might be different colors. But if I make buying them that inexpensively, now I'm making a whole lot on those dog collars instead of just about half. Because it's not the embroidery you're making the money on. It's the embroidered dog collar. You're not going to be able to compete against a commercial embroiderer that can do hats for, 67 cents a piece. I live on the border of Mexico. However, I would have to order 144 hats. So I'm a custom embroiderer. But what I'm actually making my money on is not the words themselves. It's the fact that I can do one custom item for a reasonable amount. So in this, I'm charging $14.95, and I got it over and over. I paid for my first machine in about 6 months doing dog collars. And this is something that you can do on a flatbed embroidery machine, unlike caps where you really need a multi-needle machine. But this is the way you're going to always do anything that you want to put lots of names on for name drop. We'll go right here and just real quickly, I'll come through here. And I'll go into our free monthly designs, and let's go ahead and go into May, and let's go into May 2014 because I haven't done 2015 yet. Well, this one is not, well, yeah, we'll pick one of these. I'll just bring one of these in. Now here's a design, beautiful design, would stitch gorgeous with our micro stitch thread. And I've got this design. Now if I came in and got my lettering, let's get some lettering here. And you know what, I'm going to do some circle lettering around this, and I'm going to click on. So now I'm going to put Be Mine, and on the bottom I'm going to put Forever. Whoops. Well, F-O-R, there we go, Ever. Okay, now I'm not going to use that broadcast alphabet. I'm going to come in and let's look and find something that's a little prettier. Let's see what we've got. And we want kind of I'm thinking that I want to use my micro thread. So I don't want to use something that, I'm going to use this 6mm alphabet. Now that I've picked that, and it's going to be about 1/4 of an inch tall, I'm going to apply that. Okay, now that's a little bit smaller than I would like. Let's go for maybe a little more than that. Okay, now that I've got that, we're going to come in, and I'm going to make this a little smaller, my circle, bring it down. And I think that'll look really nice with the micro thread, that Be Mine Forever. It looks a little clubby now, but with that micro thread, it's going to look perfect. But now, let's say I've got this, and I want to do several things with this circle. So I'm going to come in here for this name drop. And we're going to go ahead and we can add more. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more. And I'll put Georgie. And I'm going to put Loves Kathy. And I could add another one and say, let's say Beth and Joe, and let's come here and say June 23rd, 2015. I need a little space here. Oops. Okay, and let's go ahead and do the same thing. Let's open all files, and let's do our micro stitch heart. I'm going to put micro heart because I want to remember that I want to do this with micro stitch thread, and I'm going to save those, and I'm going to open all files. Now I'm going to close this, and I can come through here, and there's Beth and Joe, June of 2015. There's Georgie Loves Kathy. So you don't just have to do it with straight text. So if you were going to do several gifts that you were using one design and putting text on, you use your name drop. Maybe you're going to do some shirts for a reunion. Maybe you're going to do some shirts for some money and you're doing different names over a pocket. You can create that, set that all up at one time. Bring in those files, and you've done it once, and you can bring in everything instead of bringing that design in and adding the lettering to each file. So this is our name drop feature. I hope you enjoyed this week's lesson. I hope you make a little money on your dog collars. So I look forward to seeing you again next week.